This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 145.
Welcome to We the SEs Podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's going on, Benny?
Hey, it's going well, thanks. Not too much. How are you?
Good. By the way, I started recording in case you're wondering.
Oh, all right.
I just did it without warning. Try to keep it interesting.
Yep.
How you been?
Been good. Yeah. Here we are in another, I guess quarantine has continued on. We are now in a lockdown of sorts here where we live. I don't know really what that means entirely, except for just stay home as much as you can as the weather gets colder, which I'm okay with. Yeah. Nothing really too much has changed. Been catching up on my Netflix queue and catching up on different work things and catching up on sleep and stuff. So yeah, pretty good. Not too bad.
So let me ask you this. Why aren't you caught up on sleep? Do you have like a 2-year-old that keeps you awake at night or?
Not quite yet. No, I probably have the habits of a 2-year-old and maybe not going to bed when they should and maybe picking up more than they can chew, I suppose. But
yeah,
it's not such a bad thing. Also, media is so good that it just sucks you in and then spits you out.
I know, man. I know it's difficult. It is difficult, But anyways, so in the last couple of weeks, I've been telling folks that if you leave a rating and review for the show on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, wherever, and you take a snapshot of that and put it on LinkedIn, tag me, you enter a chance to win one of Tony Matos' book, or the only Tony Matos book about proof of concepts. So that's still going. And I'm going to pick a winner on my wife's due date, which is January 29th.
Ooh, so exciting.
Yeah. So if you want to win a book about proof of concepts, I really want to support Tony. It's a very good book. So actually, you get the choice of proof of concepts or the book by Oscar Santolino about rocking the tech stage. So how about that? We'll do that and let me know which book you prefer. Because these are the latest authors that we've had on the show. Let me know. Post it and we'll discuss after you win which book you want.
Yeah, that's a great offering you have there too. Like those two great authors. There's two really great concepts too talked about.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. I like to think so. And if worst comes to worst, nobody wins, I get to keep both books. so
yeah, not the worst consolation prize at all.
No. So all right, we don't have a guest today. And I kind of sprung this on you where I told you you're interviewing me, Bini, without any prior preparation. So any questions you may have, let's shoot, let's have this discussion. What do you got for me?
All right. Yeah. Well, I kind of like I like this new format. I hope to everybody listening that I don't butcher this too poorly. And if I do, that'll at least be very entertaining along the way. So yeah. So as Ramsey, yeah, fingers crossed.
Well, I'll just to preface this, I didn't give you any warning whatsoever. I like to do this to you sometimes where I come up with new ideas on the spot and you're supposed to adapt and figure it out. It's what sales engineering is all about too, right? So
100%. No, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of this already. Let's just get going with it. To all the guests, all of you know, obviously Ramsey is a sales engineer, but also a large component of his job is sales. Kind of works that hybrid role that many of us kind of are aware about, or maybe have never even heard about. Myself, for example, perhaps like a lot of you, I've only really been on the engineering side of sales engineering, I suppose, despite not being an engineer. So the whole sales side of it, and just kind of Ramsey's experience with it all, figured it's a cool topic to dive into. Ramsey, rightfully picked this as an interesting topic to dive into because, it's something that's kind of new to a lot of us. So with that rambly intro, post intro, I suppose, we'll dive right back into it. So Ramsey, people have known you a little bit through the show, but why don't you tell us a little bit as to who you are and I'll go from there.
Yeah. So my name is Ramsey Majaba, born in Kuwait, raised in Lebanon, immigrated to Canada in 2006, been in Ottawa, sunny Ottawa, Canada. I'm not lying. It's actually sunny, but it's cold. So I've been here since 2006, graduated with a communications engineering degree, worked at Nortel, left Nortel, went back to as an intern, left it, went back to university, Nortel went bankrupt. I still take credit. I was carrying it on my shoulders up until I left. The funny part about that is I was the campus ambassador for Nortel.
Oh snap! Oh, you might have actually had a part to play in their downfall then. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to think I had a part to play in their rise, but yeah, it turns out that because I was their campus ambassador, they went bankrupt.
No. Sorry, I meant that like because you left that eventually, then they went bankrupt. Sorry, poor
No,
my part.
you might be onto something. So yeah, and I was a software design and intern there. I did something called Sanity Testing, which is basically taking the code that everybody wrote, and I'm the first person to apply it to a bunch of like switching devices and test it out, make sure it's semi-testable by like the professional uh, product verification team. I hated that part, and also even in software design, I didn't enjoy doing it. I had to beg for some work, and when they gave it to me, it was more like copy and paste. We have we have a card that has 12 NIC ports. Like imagine NIC ports on your laptop. There's 12 of them on that card. We're coming up with a new card that has 2 NIC ports. Write the code for that. So all right, I'll copy the code that was written for 12, but I only do it for 2. So it wasn't very interesting to me. And then graduated in 2009 when everything's going, there's no jobs. Met someone at a barbecue party from my hometown in Lebanon. She introduced me to her manager, got a job as a support engineer, network support engineer at Alcatel-Lucent.
Wow.
This is the most I've talked on this podcast, I think. And then did a couple of years there, did network design at Alcatel-Lucent, and then became a sales engineer in 2014. And I've been in that role, sort of that role since then.
Okay. Wow. Very cool. Very. You definitely done a lot to kind of get to where you are right now. To maybe back things up just a little bit, and we'll obviously get into your current stuff and your current experiences and things without a doubt. But just while you were going to school, well, I guess maybe even before that. So when you came to Canada, did you already have a sense as to what you wanted to do your degree in?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
when you-
Well, in Lebanon, we don't have those artsy, like anybody who does philosophy is not going to have a job after they're done. So almost everybody is geared towards doctors, accounting, engineering.
I understand.
And my dad was kind of a guiding force in my life. He saw that I like to play video games and I like to tinker with computers. So he guided me towards computer engineering. But at Carleton, they had computer engineering and they had communications. I was curious about what that was. I initially applied for computer, but then I transferred to communications. Don't know why. I don't know. I still don't know. Like, there's a bit of difference, but not enough to actually warrant a change of major. But yeah, I had a good idea of what I wanted to do.
Okay, amazing. And so, because it's really cool how, I mean, at least on the podcast and obviously in the job of sales engineering, communications is so important in the various types of ways that you have to communicate and connect to your prospects and communicate the value.
It's not that kind of communication. It's more like
Oh,
networking, like
oh,
digital
got it.
communication. It's not about talking to people. I did not enjoy talking to people. I'm still like an introvert. I was much more of a loner back then, like where I didn't want to talk to people. That's why I liked computers.
Okay.
But I learned throughout my projects and throughout my career, they put us in a position where we had to do projects together, and I always ended up taking the kind of the silent lead role, where I didn't impose myself as a leader, but I always ended up being looked at as the leader of that team for some reason. Mainly because I asked questions and asked people what they want to do. I never told what anybody needs to do. I just said, "What do you like to do? All right, you do that. What do you like to do?" And I got thrusted. So I enjoyed that leadership and that kind of helping people part, which I guess led to We the SEs and why I like to do that, and sales engineering, because I like to ask questions.
Fair enough. That's kind of a really cool combination of things, actually. Especially like I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that maybe feel that same type of way, where they might not look at themselves as the most like outgoing and I don't know if communicative person is the right word per se, but like the person going out and actively feeling as if they're leading a group of people and kind of dictating what people should be doing, but like kind of being that leader, I suppose. And they may not see themselves as that, but just due to their personality, just for things to go well, I suppose. But then also looking out for those around them without wanting to seem like that tyrant. Actually like do have that very nice like soft touch of leading people without maybe people realizing it, or certainly in your case people did get to realize it because you were kind of seen as that person, even though you were doing it in the most humble of ways. And so I think it's really cool that I think a lot of people who may sell themselves short in not having leadership skills are actually very natural leaders, as you showed. I don't know, as I think you portray a lot of those.
Yeah, like I think I also got lucky because almost everybody I tried to lead wanted to do what they wanted to do, right? It's not like I had to force someone to do anything they didn't want to do. So I wouldn't say I was put to the test or anything, but I definitely enjoyed talking to people that like that. I didn't enjoy talking about parties or talking about cars. I do enjoy cars, but that wasn't. I enjoyed talking about basketball and helping people achieve what they wanted to achieve. That's pretty much what I like to do.
Fair enough. That's amazing. And then, like you said, eventually led into your first few jobs. It's kind of cool how like connections were the way that got you to
Oh
those.
yeah, I was out of a job for 4 months after university.
Oh snap!
I had applied to my master's as a backup, so I started doing masters, and randomly I went to. That was the first time I go to that barbecue. It's an annual barbecue party, and that was the first time I went wearing my Nortel shirt. Right,
Wow.
and then the lady there says, "Oh, you work at Nortel?" I'm like, "Nah, no, I'm looking for a job." And she's like, "All right, well, send me your resume." It was Sunday afternoon. I had sent her my resume by Sunday night, and Monday she had talked to the manager, and he contacted me.
Amazing.
Yeah,
That's so cool. It's funny how things just happen to be, and it's a super innocuous barbecue. And like you said, I'm guessing like kind of a Lebanese barbecue
yeah.
where the community kind of gets together and whatnot.
And she's not even from the same hometown. Like she was invited by. Like, it was just luck at that point, right? But like, I put myself in a position to get lucky. I was there. I was networking. I'm not good at network. I wasn't good at what I'm better now, but I wasn't good at networking. And having that shirt on was a conversation starter. So if maybe I didn't have my shirt on, maybe that conversation would never have started.
No, good point. Also, for those listening, keeping track, I suppose, in this case, networking means kind of communicating and talking with people
Yeah.
at a party or whatever.
Yeah, I'm gonna start maybe trying to clarify that better as we're going.
No, I'll just play. But no, okay, cool. So super cool. So I guess it's just in the end, you being natural, you being you, and just kind of also putting yourself out there by networking, kind of got you your first, I suppose, corporate job or first
Yeah.
real gig. Sorry, was Nortel your first place, or was Nortel? Yes,
Nortel
and Alcatel-Lucent after that.
Nortel was, I did my internship there.
Okay.
It was a 16-month internship, so it was a significant one. But my first job where I had benefits and vacation was Alcatel-Lucent.
Okay, cool. Okay, fair enough. So I guess in either case, I mean, even as an intern, kind of when I was an intern, like your perspective is obviously very limited, but you still see things going on across the organization that have nothing to do with your role. So things may be happening outside your department, perhaps that you might not be very aware of. Was that the case for you, or
Yeah.
were you with your
So
team and not really?
Nortel was in a very bad state when I was there, right? It wasn't doing well. It wasn't. The downfall didn't happen overnight. So I joined in 2007, and I was there till like August 2008. And during that time, you can feel the decline. And I could feel the people, like they'd show up at 10:30 and they'd leave at 3 because they didn't care. Like, they had nothing to care about. The CEO was making millions of dollars, not taking any risk. And one of the guys that I was working with was fired and then rehired and then fired and then rehired.
Huh.
And so and during tough times, right, where there weren't that many jobs out there. So how would you feel? Like, I don't know. I just there was no sense of loyalty. Like when I worked at Alcatel-Lucent, there was a sense of loyalty there, right? At least within our department. But at Nortel, there wasn't that. Now, like in the past, I've worked with Sienna. So Sienna bought Nortel, and as soon as Sienna bought Nortel, and I started working with Sienna again as a sales engineer, like they were my customers, you could feel the shift in the culture. Like they're doing better. They're late. They're early versus when I was with Nortel during the year that I was there.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. That's very interesting too. That whole dynamic when that kind of blanket of, I don't know what the right word is, I guess negativity or pet, like when a company is in that type of state and when you have people kind of, there's a culture of not being fully committed to it. Seeing that as an intern must have been.
Well, they were just waiting. They were in a waiting state. Like everybody was doing their job, but they were also in a waiting state where they're gonna go bankrupt. Right.
Right.
It was inevitable. Like kind of like Thanos.
Haven't seen the movie, but spoilers potentially.
Damn.
I'll get onto it eventually.
Almost everybody else who's listening to the podcast have seen that movie, so they know what I'm talking about.
No, it's fair. Honestly, I've seen all the memes with it too, with the snap of fingers and all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, true. Oh, good point.
2 years later.
That's true. I think there's a rule around like the validity date of spoilers, or like when a spoiler warning is required for certain things. Like 2 years for a culture, like a movie like that, probably is fair.
Maybe I have no idea. I don't really talk about movies that much, so I can't really tell you. But yeah.
Fair.
So that was the culture there.
Okay, cool, handy. So over there it might have been a little bit different because the salespeople kind of were on a place that were on a taking time bomb. Or actually, last question about the Nortel piece: were sales still going on, or was it really just maintenance of current customers?
I think sales were still going on. I was not privy to that part. I didn't even know that sales existed at that time. I just thought, I just did software. I had no idea what other parts of the organization were, right?
And as an intern, that's common, right? Like you want to obviously impress, consider you're just coming out of school, not really knowing much. And
yeah. Like I don't think you're gonna be an expert in the org structure of a company when you never been part of an org structure, right? Like coming out of university. But even like as you get older, I didn't know, like when I worked at Alcatel-Lucent, I didn't know what sales engineering was. I became a sales engineer without knowing what that role was, right? So I think that's a kind of a disservice that universities do, where they focus so much on the technical stuff and they don't even talk about what people are going to end up doing. I didn't know what roles there were when I graduated university. I thought there was just software.
Interesting.
Right? Software and product verification. I didn't know there was support. I didn't know, like, they don't expose you to anything, which is why I was working on a video, which I haven't for I don't know, 6 months now, to talk about the different roles at universities. I haven't published it yet, but that's there. You don't know what there is out there. I didn't know there was sales. I didn't know there was product verification, other than, like, I knew there was software design, product verification. I didn't know about support, didn't know about network design, didn't know about product management, nothing, right? So yeah, I think universities need to do a better job at not just teaching people the technical stuff, teaching them where to apply. I mean, even when I did my internship, I applied to jobs, I didn't know what they were. Right. So I think we need to work there.
No, it's valid. Did you do yours through any sort of like co-op program or anything like that? Or was it?
Yeah,
wow.
At Carleton University.
Interesting. So I guess, like, yeah, we probably have a little bit of time in between our degrees, but it's kind of cool because since I also did co-op at Carleton, I was going to say that, you know, like for most students at university, totally agree. But, you know, I guess I was lucky enough to go through co-op, where they did kind of walk you through things a little bit more, but they must have improved it, I'd imagine, between the time when you were there and when
you did business, right?
I did, yeah.
How many potential jobs are there out there for business majors?
I think quite a few. I mean, there's a lot of accounting jobs. I wasn't in accounting, so a lot of those would be moot for me. But there was still a good mix, because there was still, like, there was a lot of government jobs in addition to a few private sector ones here and there. So yeah, that was a good mix. I was never concerned, and I always had interviews or whatever.
Yeah, I had interviews. I just didn't know what I was interviewing for.
Fair enough. Okay.
It seems that all of it was kind of like software design, what I was interviewing, except my major was network engineering, communications engineering. So yeah, I feel like we need to do a better job, at least in the engineering world, to talk about what roles there are outside of just building software. because that's a small portion of people who end up doing that. And they don't need a communications engineering degree. They need more like a software engineering degree. Right.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, that is very true. Yeah, hopefully, well, I think things like this, movements like this, and just bringing more awareness to the sales engineering world and brand will open up the eyes of more students around that this is an opportunity.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, so sorry, a little bit of a side tangent that we went down there. What I wanted to ask you, I suppose, in general was, did you have an impression of what sales was, even if you didn't know what sales engineering was? Like, did you even have a concept of like sales, like the flashy account executives or never, and whatever other? Like, did you have a sense of who they were and what they did, even in your times at Alcatel and perhaps even
Alcatel, I had an idea.
Okay.
So it depends. When I first joined, not so much, but as I was there for a while, I interacted with a few sales engineers. What strike me about them is that they weren't very technical. What I saw was they knew one aspect very well, right? They knew like routing, or they knew optical very well. So Alcatel is a big company. They have a lot of different products. And what I saw that those sales engineers tend to lean a lot on the consultants as well. So there's sales engineering, and then there's consultant engineering. So sales engineers sold everything in the portfolio, and you had different consultants for different product lines. So they lean on them, who also worked with a lot with support, a lot with network design. So I kind of learned through that, but I didn't know exactly. I thought they were salespeople for the longest time. I thought sales engineering was salespeople. I thought what they did was, I didn't know what sales engineering was. I didn't hear that term, but I thought they were salespeople. Yeah.
Okay. And then did you, excuse me, and then when did you find out about the distinction between salespeople and sales engineers?
When I became a sales engineer.
Okay, fair enough. All right.
I applied to a job that the title was systems engineering. So it wasn't sales engineering. So in
Very
my mind, it's like, I'm technical.
Right.
And then I got the interview, I did the job, and I started working at that company. And then they hired a salesperson. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess I'm not the salesperson. I'm just technical. Perfect. That's what I wanted. And that's how I got to learn the distinctions. A little bit late, I can say, in my career, but still, I got there.
No, 100% you got there. That's kind of a cool way about it too. Actually, it's almost as if it worked out perfectly where, well, you have a systems engineer job posting, you go into that with the expectation that it is a bit more technical. But then I guess you found it to be, I guess, more personable than you initially thought. Sorry, I think I missed that part. So like, was there more communicating and more talking with customers just even before that salesperson was hired, than you expected, or was it very technical from the get-go and then the salesperson was hired, which kind of filled that,
No, it was very technical from the get-go. So when I joined that company, it was the first. They had just opened their division in Ottawa, or in Canada. They used to go through a reseller, and then they stopped working with the reseller and they hired their sales engineering team, which is where I came in. And the director of sales, he used to fly up out of Boston to do the sales part, right? And they hired the sales guy a month after I was hired.
Okay.
So it didn't take long, and in that month I was just ramping up on the technology, on the equipment, on the portfolio as well. So I shadowed that salesperson. I shadowed my SE manager when he'd come up, when we met with customers. It was strange, that experience, because I don't know. I still remember it was very late. It was a little bit combative when I met with the customers, mainly because the customers liked working with the reseller.
Okay.
And I didn't feel that relationship. I just thought it was strange. Like, sitting in there, I felt there was tension in the room, not good tension. Like when you're negotiating, more like, I don't want to talk to you guys, but I have to, so I'm not gonna be nice to you.
Jeez.
But yeah, that changed after a while. Like when I was able to build that relationship, and when they saw that we were there doing the job, I think that was their fear. I think they liked a specific person at the reseller, not the reseller in general. So
yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. Just in general, yeah, just like big part in sales, those relationships that you build. So I mean, kudos to the reseller for having built that relationship with that particular customer, but also then kudos back to you to be able to build up that relationship, of your own with them from scratch, and then get it up to that same level eventually.
I feel building relationship with existing customers is easy. Just be there, like you don't have to buy them birthday gifts. They don't care about that. Just if they have a question, be there, answer their question, show up and say hi. You don't need to do extravagant. It's not like you're taking them on a date or bringing them flowers.
Right.
They need something from you. Be there for them. And that's more specific for people who are not out hunting for new opportunities, more like working with an existing set of customers.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the easy part for me.
That's good advice just in general though. It's I think hopefully there are people that need to hear that, because that's huge advice. Just a proper account management and like even something as simple as being there for them can make such a big difference for a company. So that's good advice. So when you kind of went into your first sales engineering gig and you worked with the salesperson that kind of got hired on a month after you, what were your impressions of that person's activities and the things that they were doing? Was it at all something that you saw yourself being able to do eventually even, or what was that like?
Yes, but I didn't know exactly what he was doing.
Okay.
The only time I was exposed to what he was doing was in meetings, and in meetings, all he did was spray and pray.
Right.
For those who don't know what spray and pray is, we had a slide deck of like 200 slides, and we'd go through them in every meeting with every customer, even if it's the same customer we met a month ago, and we don't have any updates since the last time we met. We just go through the same slides. So yeah, that looked fairly easy for me, because at the end of the slide, it's like, oh, would you like a quote? He's Polish, so he has a bit of an accent. It's like, no, I don't. Oh yes, no, yeah, sure. Send me that. Send me this. We didn't develop that need for them to actually want the product. We just show them. Would you like this one? No. It's like, do you want a Honda Civic? No. Accord? No. Pilot? No. Oh, you're interested in Odyssey? What would you like in the Odyssey? Oh, we asked the question. We're not supposed to ask questions. We're just supposed to show you stuff. How about this one? It's like showing them a catalog. We didn't need to be there. It's like, here, you can read this and tell us what you want. That was kind of the sales job that I witnessed, and I thought, yeah, I could do that.
Okay. Okay, very interesting. So, so you're a sales engineer. You're kind of seeing your sales rep counterpart kind of going through the motions and doing what he does during meetings. Obviously, you're kind of like doing all the intense things that a sales engineer is required to do in tandem.
No, I was not. Like, I was just there with them.
Sorry. I meant like not necessarily like at the meeting, but like.
Yeah, but no. We didn't do anything specific to warrant a demo or warrant anything like that. We were just showing slides, and they'd say yes or no, and most of them it's like, all right, send me that card. I did a couple of demos like for customers where they call us and say, hey, I need some information. I need to see this technology, and then I'd work on that demo. But in general, I wasn't working on that many demos.
Fair.
So
okay.
Which is why I thought, like, yeah, I could do that job. It's like, it's easy.
It's fair enough. It'll be something to do too. I can put those on top of my current thing.
We need 2 people for this job? Like, no.
Good point. No, valid. Okay, so that makes sense. So I'm just trying to put myself in your head right now. Somebody that engineer, possesses natural leadership qualities and skills, go into a role that has kind of a salesy component where there's probably not that much selling going on, or like proper selling, more just like suppose like showcasing, I guess.
Yeah. We're like the car models.
Yeah. Exactly.
Just not as good looking.
Great, though, at that.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
Exactly. Hey, it's natural. Yeah.
That hurt my hand though.
Oh, shoot.
You guys should watch the YouTube video. You'll see me doing like hand modeling.
A lot of practice, I suppose. Got to do. I'm sure hand models have a very regimented stretching routine before any.
It's possible.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, did you? So I guess in the point between, like at that point where you're kind of looking at this and thinking you could maybe do this, to you obviously becoming or getting into a role where you like at an official capacity have that sales and sales engineering parts to them as part of your job. Were you offered the opportunity to move over to the sales side? Did you start to seek it out a little bit more as an escape perhaps from the technical side of things, or did you want to add more to your plate? Kind of like, what was your, I don't know, in your head, your path, I suppose, to get you from where you were to, hey, I can do that. Let's actually do that.
Right. Well, so it happened twice. First time it happened was within my old company. where the sales guy that I was working with, the bad one, got promoted to a director role, and they needed to hire a salesperson. So I offered my services, and so I started the job in 2014. Like in July 2014, I became a sales engineer. In I think it was January 2016, I started my role as a salesperson.
2 years, holy smokes. Okay, wow.
And I hated every second of it. Well, first off, I didn't have a sales engineer, so I was doing both sales and sales engineering at the time. It took a long time to actually find a sales engineer. We interviewed a lot of people, we couldn't find any, which I guess I was lucky there. And I just hated it. Like I hated. First of all, I didn't enjoy working with that boss. He wasn't a very good boss. I would wake up. I had a brand new baby. I would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd start working on my sales role, like trying to plan the day, find out who I'm calling, and then around 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon, I want to get up and see my family. Like I was working in my basement, and he would call me at 6 every day, and he would talk to me about car rentals and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, I don't travel. I don't know why you're talking to me about car rentals. Right? He didn't have the concept of like I don't want to like bash that guy, but yeah, I don't mind. He didn't have the concept of this guy needs this guy needs this. It's like I need this, I'm going to talk about that. That's the way he thought about it. I didn't get proper mentoring. I didn't know how to do the funnel properly. I would wait for the VP of sales to come up so I can learn a few things from them. So it wasn't really a good experience in terms of I didn't have a great boss. I didn't have great mentorship. I tried to learn on my own, and I read like I bought spin selling, I bought solution selling, and I tried to apply those. And it was going well whenever I applied those. I didn't find it very fun, so. And I like having that bad boss really affected my relationship with sales negatively. And so after 6 months, I called my old boss back, my sales engineering boss. I'm like, hey, dude, I'm not enjoying this at all. What can I do? He's like, you can come back to being a sales engineer. I'm like, okay. So I went back to being a sales engineer up until I left that company in 2018, like a few months after my sales engineering boss left, who was like the best boss I've ever had. And then when I joined this new company, I came in as a hybrid sales engineer, because so we all sales engineers and sales report to a sales director, right? There is no SE manager and sales manager. There's sales director, and SEs and sales report into him. And he needed someone to take over specific accounts, and he knew I didn't want to go into sales after my previous experience. So he said, all right, we'll do something special for you. We'll have you as a hybrid. And I had one account to take care of. So I did that for a while. And the year after, he said, all right, man, we need to give you a couple more accounts. And now this year I have a specific industry, like vertical, that I take care of as a hybrid sales engineer. But realistically speaking, I have not, like, since October, I've been more sales than sales engineer. And we have this conversation all the time with my boss. Like, I never wanted to get into sales. I'm doing this to help you because you need someone to do this.
That's really nice, actually.
What is?
It's just like a very nice way to go about it. Like, I mean, yeah, like I'm not doing this for my benefit. I'm doing this for yours, type of deal.
Yeah, and he's trying to help me achieve what I want too. Like, he's trying to help me create a role of SE managers, and because that's where I wanted to go.
Amazing.
So we're working together on that. I don't know if it's going to happen because, in the corporate world, in big, like when the company has over like 5,000 people working for them, it's not easy to create a new role. So he's doing what he can, and I'm helping them out in the meantime.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Talk about forging a new path, though. I mean, I think like just the world of sales engineering in general has benefited from having this podcast, and just like the community around sales engineering itself, like has grown so much in the past, let's say 3-4 years, even less than that, realistically. That the role itself and the requirement for, organizational structures to reflect the importance of that role and structure around that role and team, I think is growing in large part due to the show and others. So that's really cool to see that in action at your organization by one of the people that are forging the path for sales engineers in general. So,
well, I'd like to take credit. I don't know if it's actually true it's because of the show or not, but for some reason, in the recent couple of years, people are seeing the value of sales engineering a lot more than they did in the past. And they're doing something about it, which is great.
Agreed. So quickly, just to go back to something that you mentioned a little bit earlier. So while you were in that initial sales role that, you didn't really have much guidance, and, everything is pretty much looking to be terrible about this role, more or less. Was there anything you did like about it? Like, what were there little, I don't know, glimpses of sales that you quite enjoyed even at that time?
So, yes, the strategy behind it, and also I was still doing my own demos. I was still doing everything. So I was still being a sales engineer and a salesperson, right? I was technically a salesperson, but I was doing the hybrid job. What I noticed that I didn't enjoy was working with a manager, and what I'm not enjoying today about sales, like I enjoy a lot of aspects about sales. And if you tell me you're going to be a salesperson or a support engineer, it's like I'll take sales any day of the week. I love being a sales engineer. I'm okay with being a salesperson. I don't want to do anything else, kind of. Or like it has to be in the sales world, like marketing. It has to be something in that world where I have an impact on the company. What I don't enjoy, or I didn't enjoy, was working with that specific manager. But I don't have that. I have a very good manager right now. I don't enjoy the sales op part of it. So we do a lot of, like, here's an example. We do a lot of physical equipment. We ship them. And it's not my job to ship them, but it's my job to keep my customer happy. And with Corona and all that, there's a shortage of equipment, shortage of material. So I'm the guy who's hounding the people who's shipping, right? Instead of being out there trying to sell stuff, I'm working internally to make sure stuff is shipped. That's not the fun part of sales and sales engineers. Sales is the strategy, like trying to figure out how I'm going to talk to this person to convince them to give me a meeting to talk about this brand new product that's coming out that's going to help them in the future.
Right.
That's fun. Hey man, when are you going to ship that product? Not so much. Right. Hey man, like I'm having a problem with Salesforce. It's not providing the proper quote. Can you fix it? Not fun. That sort of thing. So sales in general is fun. The thing about this that I notice is that if I have the option to call a customer or work on a demo, I would prefer to work on a demo. And that's where I made the distinction that I prefer being a sales engineer over being a salesperson. That being said, it could be just that that's my comfort zone, and this is not, and I need to push myself more into being outside of my comfort zone. But I don't feel like I've mastered sales engineering yet enough to say that I want to be a salesperson. I still have a lot to learn in sales engineering, and I want to master that before moving on.
That's a really smart way to go about it. Also really, really cool and humbling. Like, I don't know if humbling is the right word, but admirable maybe. I don't know, but hearing, the founder of We the Sales Engineers talk about not having mastered sales engineering yet, which fair enough, I think that's just a good quality and kind of good mindset to have about things. It's just
that's the genesis of VDSEs. That's why I started VDSEs, because I didn't master it. I didn't know what I was proven that I have no idea what I'm doing. So we had VPs come up to Canada. We were trying to work on this big deal. Because they were coming up, we decided to come up to schedule 5 meetings other than that big meeting that we had that we wanted them to come for. And we did the same presentation in all 5 meetings. And only the first meeting really cared about that presentation. The rest were just, oh, we have the PM, we have the VP, let's do the same presentation. And at the end of after the 5th meeting, the VP invited me into his office and said, Ramsey, you didn't do any discovery. That was in 2016, like when I returned to being a sales engineer. And I looked him straight in the eye and said, what is discovery? Right? 2 years on the job. Right? I should know what discovery is. No one said that. They may have talked about like asking questions, but no one talked about discovery.
Right.
And that was around the end of 2016. And I went on a tear where I was reading like a lot of sales. I bought Demo to Win. I bought Demo to Win. Has a great section about discovery and meetings. I bought a great demo. So I went on a tear where I was reading every book, but I still didn't feel like it was enough for me to learn, because they're talking about software sales. I'm in hardware and software. It was a bit different. I'm working with the same customers. Not all the customers want to answer all my questions. So that's where WeDSE started. I wanted to ask people questions, and maybe they can tell me how to do it right. I got a lot better since I started WeDSEs. I can feel myself asking the right questions. I can feel myself talking to the right people and having different strategies, different techniques in my tool belt, but I still haven't mastered it. I still have a long way to go. I still need to work on my storytelling. I still need to work on my technical knowledge, right? Because a lot of sales engineering is about engineering as well. So that's what I need to work on.
Amazing. Just I think there's so many great things that I know that I got out of that whole little statement, and so many good things people could get out of that as well. Like anything from the constant, like the mindset of growth and constantly wanting to try to get better. The initiative you showed in just creating WeDSCs in order to combat this issue that you had, and to fill this gap up. You kind of created something to not only help yourself learn and fill those gaps, but also so many others as well, myself certainly included. I know you talked about it on the shows before, but it is really cool how things kind of came full circle, where in order to kind of learn more about these roles, you kind of read all these books and whatnot. And then you start up the podcast and end up getting pretty much all the authors of these same books on to share their perspective.
But it's different. It's getting the authors is different than reading the book, because you read the book, you're gonna have questions about certain areas of the book. And now I have the authors on. We had John Kerr, we've had Peter Cohan, we've had Bob Reistall. I didn't want to say his last name, but hey, I think I said it right. Chris White. We've had them on the show, and we were able to ask them our questions, so it was great.
So cool. Yeah, no, agreed. And thanks for bringing me along for the ride. Obviously,
my pleasure.
Pretty great. Okay, cool. So you're in our role, or rather, you've had the experience as a salesperson that wasn't so great. Kind of realized that you enjoyed things that were a little more technical. You got offered though this role, this opportunity to become a sales engineer. Slash I guess the hybrid role that you're in right now, but focused in on a single account. So it's not like you'd be spread out all over the place with a customer already. So I guess at that time, were you kind of started, like, based upon your experience that you had in sales before, were you anxious about how your current experience would be based upon that? Or were you very quick to just to start to do certain activities that were more in line with what you liked, and then the rest would just develop after? Like, how did the anxiety from your first sales experience play into this hybrid role that you were in, if it did at all?
So my boss did a great job there, where for the first year I didn't have to do. So I've been there since 2018. I didn't have to do, for the first half of the year, I didn't have to do any sales. I was more like the sales engineer. And here's something that I noticed. My relationship wasn't great with my boss at that time. I feel like he was expecting something different of me that I wasn't providing. So as soon as I felt that, I felt anxious about my relationship more than my job, like what I was doing. And he hired me as a hybrid sales engineer. I was doing mostly sales engineering, so I felt like maybe I should be taking on more responsibility. So I started taking on more responsibility. I started doing quoting for him. Like, hey man, I know you're busy and you're doing all the quotes right now. How about I do the quotes for you for the small opportunities within that customer? Because we have a big customer that with multiple different teams, and each one requires different quoting. So he said, sure. And I started taking that on, and my relationship got better with him. And I feel like a lot of the jobs is based on how your relationship is with your boss, if you know where you stand with them. And so sales isn't that hard. It's just, I think General Patton once said, 10% of your job is to tell someone what to do, especially for leaders, and 90% is making sure they do it. So when you're in sales and you get a purchase order and you send it to the people who book it, it is their job to book it. 10% of my job is to tell them to book it, and 90% is to make sure they book it. And I learned that. So once I got the hang of that, I said to my boss, all right, give me more responsibility. And as I was telling him, give me more responsibility, my relationship got better with him.
Amazing.
Right. And the more when I was just doing pure sales engineering within this role, my relationship wasn't great and I felt very anxious. And as I did more sales and took over from my boss, my relationship got better. I felt less anxious about my relationship. I felt better about where I stand. So it's kind of a compromise. Yeah, I'm doing stuff that I might not enjoy, emailing, shipping to make sure it's done, but my relationship got better and it was worth it.
Fair.
So that's how I saw it. It wasn't more. It wasn't. I don't know if I answered the question. Was that even the question?
I think kind of to a degree. So yeah, like I think the big thing I got out of that in general was your initiative, I suppose, to ask to almost take on more, to ask the initiative to ask your boss to kind of see like if you're in good standing with him, if there, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like I guess just asking him like that initiative to make
Okay.
sure you're doing
Yeah.
everything that you should be doing as opposed to just kind of what you were already doing, allowed your boss to then show you these things that you could also be doing, which eased your relationship with him to know that, oh, cool, like this is that unknown that I wasn't sure if he wanted me to do more. Now he's kind of telling me the things I could be doing. And then by you doing those things, you're in good standing. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, I think the question was though if I was anxious about people going into sales. So let me try to answer that again. So initially, he just let me do sales engineering, but because I did that, maybe I did it a little bit too long. I felt anxious about my relationship with him more than about going into sales. So for me, it was worth doing more sales to ease the relationship with my boss, which frankly, that's the job he hired me to do. He didn't hire me to be a sales engineer. He hired me to be a hybrid. So no, I wasn't anxious taking on more responsibility because it alleviated anxiousness in other areas of my career, I guess.
Interesting. And I guess just like the guidance of your boss though too, to actually like tell you things that I guess that are required as part of the process, and I guess being more of like, I don't know, I guess being more of a partner to you there as opposed to being whatever that first sales director was when you're
Yeah.
in that sales role was.
Well, I also feel like he was trying to be there for me. He wasn't trying to push me into being more of a salesperson initially, but when you're under a lot of stress as a director and you hired someone to do something, you're expecting them to do it.
Right.
And even though he's doing his best not to push, I did feel the tension. So
Okay.
as soon as I took on more responsibility, I alleviated tension off of him, which made me feel better about my relationship with him. And it could be all in my head, honestly. This could be 100% in my head because we never had that conversation. But I feel like I'm good at reading people,
Right.
or at least reading tension. So the more responsibilities I took, I feel like the more he joked with me. Right? It's a simple thing, right? Like not joking to joking, and okay, now it's good.
Totally. That's important to be able to read too. Like I think you're probably bang on with how everybody felt just from your perceptions of the situation. I mean, as a sales engineer too, you have to almost be really good. Well, it's better rather if you're good at being able to read the room and read emotions in the room. And certainly when you're on a video call, as everybody's on today, it can it's helpful to still be able to get. It's way harder to get a sense as to what people are feeling or thinking without seeing their face or whatever it may be. But certainly when you're in the boardroom as somebody, and when you're kind of giving your spiel and talking about things with prospects, kind of being able to read the room will definitely dictate maybe how a conversation may go, what type of language you use, or what types of jokes you may throw, if you do.
Yeah, I feel like if you develop a good relationship with people, you'll be able to read them better, right? If you're meeting someone for the first time, you're never going to be able to read them. Like they may be standoffish or whatever, but as soon as you build a better relationship, you have a baseline of what they look like, and if they're happy, they look like this. If they're sad, they look like this, and you're able to actually read them better as you're going through the sales experience.
True. No, very, very true.
Out of curiosity, did you want to do the not so fire round? Like you're doing the interview, so I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, no.
Do the not so fire round, or do you have more questions for me?
I was going to ask just one more, and then pop into not so fire round. I think it is a good idea, though. I mean, it would be cool to hear your responses on those questions. Since,
what are those questions? I can't even remember.
Yeah, thankfully I know the top one offhand, and then the rest will just have to come in.
I'll ask myself. All right.
So I guess the last question would be, now that you've been in this role, I guess now that you've been exposed to the sales side in a more supportive, I guess, way than the first time you were thrown into it, And obviously with the experience that you've amassed just throughout your career, what are your thoughts on sales? If you were to maybe like speak to, intern Ramsey or first job at a university Ramsey with respect to maybe what sales is and what their impression of things are, what would you tell them?
Well, intern Ramsey always thought of sales like car salesmen, right? I didn't like them. But what I would, and kind of preaching to the choir here, but if it wasn't for salespeople, no one would have a job. And like it's a symbiotic relationship. You need engineers to develop the product. You need salespeople to sell it. But people, for some reason, look up to software engineers or designers who are developing the product, and look down on the salespeople who are selling it. But if it wasn't for them, you can do all the best product in the world. Salespeople need to sell it. So maybe have a little bit more respect to salespeople. And I'm not talking about sales engineers. Sales engineers are also kind of looked up to for some reason. Well, not for some reason, but salespeople are looked down at. But great salespeople are just. I've talked to. There was one person. I think he was on the podcast like back in show 16. Every time I sat with him, I felt so much smarter, even though he's a salesperson. You never think you'd say that about a salesperson. Like even my boss today, I sit with him, I learned so much. Even though they're salespeople are problem solvers, they just do it on the commercial side versus the technical side. So I don't know. That's what I think. That's what I would tell intern Ramsey. Stop looking down at people in general.
It's good advice. No, definitely good advice in general. But yeah, no, there are some smart salespeople out there without a doubt. Yeah, I've had the privilege in my short career to meet a number of salespeople, and yeah, goodness gracious, have I ever learned a lot from them. And they're all just good people in the end too. It's so
Yeah.
crazy that it's so easy to come into
Well,
relationships, conversations with misconceptions. But
so here's an example. Like I worked with that salesperson back in my old job. Didn't like he wasn't great, and he was my boss for a while. He wasn't a great salesperson, and you could tell that this guy would sell anything to anybody, even if we like. He sold product that didn't do what we said it would do, right? And I would like even if I correct him in front of the customer, he would double down and say, "Oh no, I talked to the PM and he said that." Like, no, you didn't.
even if you didn't, oh no.
We sold support on an unsupported product, and I told him no, we cannot do that, and he still sold it. But then he hired another salesperson to take over his role, and we were in the same positions that we were in with him. And this guy, he looks at me, he's like, "Wait, I thought this wasn't support." I'm like, "It's not, but your boss did that last time." He's like, "All right, we're not doing it this time."
Amazing.
Right. So there are honest, the same way there's like dishonest engineers and dishonest like whatever. There's honest and dishonest salespeople. The majority of the salespeople I've met are honest, especially for those who actually have to resell to the same companies. It's in their best interest as well to be honest. Because if I sell you a product that doesn't say what I said it would, the next time I try to sell you something, you're not going to believe me. So.
No, very true. It's definitely good advice. And with that, I think it's probably time to go over to the not so fire round.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do it in 5 round succession, though. I have a call in 5 minutes.
Oh shoot! Okay, fair enough. In that case, then let's jump right into it. So in the world of SEing, what do you love about it?
The strategy and being able to being able to ask the right questions so that the customers see that your problem, you solve their problem. Like,
very cool.
Not selling them the problem, not selling them the solution, asking the right questions so that they sell it to themselves, I guess.
Incredible. Yeah, no, that's definitely have to have a good mind for that. But I think you definitely do. What would you change about, I guess, just the sales engineering in general?
I would change the value. Like I would increase the value and make sure that sales engineers have SE managers versus sales people managers. That's
very, very
that's the biggest thing I would change. And my boss already knows that. I've like he knows that.
No, I think we'll keep on driving that message home. That's definitely a good goal, and the world is getting there without a doubt. Okay, cool. You've talked about a few already on the show today, but what are some books, tools, or resources that you'd recommend for the crowd to develop their skills, whether it be in sales or sales engineering?
It's not about sales or sales engineering, but I would say I would 2 books: Mindset by Carol Dweck, is it? Yeah, Dweck, and Atomic Habits by James Clear. Yeah, James Clear. One talks about having a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And having a fixed mindset means you'll never learn anything. Having a growth mindset means you can learn anything. And Atomic Habits is just about building the right habits so that you can be successful at your job and your life.
Amazing. I feel like both those books are critical to having a good foundation for or sorry, the messages in those books rather are critical to have a good foundation just to be a good upstanding individual.
Like mindset, I just told you what it's about. That's pretty much it, right? And it makes sense. If you have doubts, you should buy that book. If you already understand growth mindset, don't worry about it. Atomic Habits, I think everybody should buy it.
Fair enough. No, good call. All right, a couple of minutes left here. And last question, I suppose, in the not so fire round. What separates the great SEs from the not so great ones and everybody else?
The need to learn, the need to get better. I guess I would say that.
One may even say the need to have a great mindset.
Like we talked to Russ Moore, right? He didn't have the need to get better. He was an okay SE. As soon as he had the need to get better, he became a director.
Yeah. So. Oh, true. Definitely a good point. It's definitely can't be overstated how important that need to, I guess, in order for anything to happen, you almost need to want to have to happen yourself, and you won't get better unless you actually want to. So
exactly.
I love that a lot. All right. Well, you mentioned you have a call coming up very soon. Ramsey, this has been such a privilege for myself to be able to interview you. Certainly, I think for the listeners to be able to understand a little bit more about the man behind the mic or the camera for those watching on YouTube. Goodness, any final thoughts? Any last things you'd like to kind of tell the listeners before we cap off for the day?
I think I blurted out a lot of stuff today. I think I'm out of ideas right now.
Well, we definitely appreciate you kind of leaving the good stuff for the show, because there was a lot of really good nuggets in there and a lot of insight, I think, that you shared with respect to guiding people along career paths that they may not known were right for them, and perhaps even enticing others to go into roles that they might not have seen as that useful or valuable or good, perhaps in the past, or maybe even connected people that may otherwise have not have been connected. So I think this was a really good show, definitely a privilege, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, well, sure. I seems that I enjoy talking these days.
Amazing. All right. Well, with that, everybody, again, thank you, Ramsey. Ramsey will be back again next week for the next show, as well as myself.
Unless my wife gives birth.
Oh, that's right. Exactly. End of the year. That would be pretty cool, actually. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a funny joke around like naming your baby around like We the SEs somehow, but I can't figure out.
I don't think my wife will go for it. We see. Yeah.
Oh, that's cute, indeed.
Yeah, I don't think my wife will go for it. But yeah.
Fair. Well, hopefully we may have a special guest on the show then in the near future, potentially. But with that, sorry, I haven't taken up your ears for too long. Everybody have a great week. Leave a message or leave a rating and a comment on whatever platform you're getting these on, just to show your appreciation for the show and for us to know that things are working. And also, send in your reviews to Ramsey and, potentially get one or two amazing books to help further your sales engineering careers. And yeah, until next time, this is Bini for Ramsey signing out.